Picture this. Your government runs out of money. Not for a war, not for a pandemic, just normal life. Schools, roads, salaries, pensions. There's an obvious solution sitting right there. Raise taxes. And yet, again and again, governments choose something else. They borrow from the future, from people who haven't voted yet, from workers who aren't born yet, from you 5, 10, 20 years from now. This isn't an accident, it's a design choice. And once you see how it works, it's hard to unsee. Right now, government debt is exploding across the world. The US crossed $34 trillion. Japan sits above 250% of its entire economy. Europe keeps rolling over old debt like nothing's wrong. But here's the strange part. Most people don't feel it. Not today. That's why this matters right now. Because borrowing hides pain. Taxes don't. Let's slow this down. Imagine a household. Income comes in, bills go out. If spending goes up, you have two options: earn more or borrow. Raising taxes is the earn more option for governments. Borrowing is the credit card. But governments don't use credit cards like you do. They use something far more powerful. They sell promises. When a government borrows, it issues bonds. That's just a formal way of saying, lend us money today, we'll pay you back later with interest. Banks buy them. Pension funds buy them. Insurance companies buy them. Even other governments buy them. It sounds boring. It's not. Because unlike taxes, borrowing doesn't create an immediate backlash. No angry headlines tomorrow morning. No protests outside Parliament. No voters saying, "You took my money." Borrowing feels invisible. The money appears, the spending happens, and the bill gets delayed. That delay is everything. Now here's the uncomfortable truth most people miss. Governments don't borrow because it's cheaper. They borrow because it's quieter. Raising taxes is politically loud. Borrowing is politically silent. A tax increase shows up on your paycheck. A bond auction doesn't. And voters punish pain they can see. So politicians learn fast. If you want to spend now and survive the next election, you borrow. This is where the story gets darker. Because borrowing isn't just delayed payment. It changes who really pays. When taxes go up, today's workers pay. When governments borrow, future workers pay. But future workers don't vote today. They don't protest today. They don't get a say. That's the quiet moral loophole. Now let's talk about the math they don't put on campaign posters. Debt doesn't just sit there. It compounds. Interest is the silent partner in every budget. Year after year, more money goes not to schools or hospitals, but to servicing old promises. In some countries, interest payments are now one of the biggest expenses, bigger than education, bigger than infrastructure. And here's the irony. Borrowing was supposed to make life easier, but over time it makes governments less flexible. Because when debt grows, choices shrink. Cut spending, people revolt. Raise taxes, people revolt. Borrow more, markets start asking questions. This is where the system reveals its real tension. Governments don't borrow from the future in a poetic sense. They borrow from financial markets. And markets are patient until they're not. As long as investors believe a government can repay, borrowing stays cheap. Interest rates stay low. Everything feels stable. But the moment doubt creeps in, the cost explodes. We've seen this movie before. Greece, Argentina, Sri Lanka. One day, borrowing feels normal. The next day, nobody wants your bonds. And suddenly, the future arrives all at once. Now here's a subtle twist that makes this even stranger. Governments often argue that borrowing is responsible, that it spreads costs across generations, that today's investments benefit tomorrow's citizens. Sometimes that's true. Building infrastructure that lasts decades, borrowing can make sense. But that's not where most debt goes. Most borrowing funds current spending, salaries, subsidies, interest on older debt. It's not building the future, it's maintaining the present. And that's the uncomfortable math. We're not borrowing to create more value. We're borrowing to avoid hard choices. This is where the hype and reality part ways. The hype says governments borrow because it's smart macroeconomic management. The reality is simpler. Borrowing is the least painful option today, and democracies are wired for today. Elections run on short timelines. Budgets don't. A politician who raises taxes now might lose office. A politician who borrows pushes the cost beyond their term. That's not incompetence, it's incentive. And incentives shape systems. Zoom out and the risks get bigger. As debt grows, governments become dependent on low interest rates. They need central banks to keep money cheap. They need markets to stay calm. And this quietly shifts power. Central banks gain influence. Markets gain leverage. Future policy becomes constrained by past promises. And when inflation shows up, things get awkward. Because inflation is another way to deal with debt. It erodes its real value, which means, once again, the cost is paid indirectly, through higher prices, lower purchasing power, not through a tax bill, through your grocery receipt. So why not just raise taxes honestly and deal with it? Because honesty is expensive, and delay is seductive. Borrowing lets governments say yes today and explain tomorrow. Taxes force explanation immediately. And in modern politics, immediate pain is the one thing everyone avoids. Here's the quiet irony. Borrowing feels compassionate. Taxes feel harsh. But over time, borrowing often hurts the people it was meant to protect. Young workers, fixed-income households, future taxpayers. The system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. Smooth the present, load the future. Which leaves us with a question that never gets asked out loud. At what point does borrowing from the future stop being a bridge and start becoming a trap? Because the future always arrives. It just doesn't vote until it's too late.